Please come to order and welcome to our budget work session this afternoon for fiscal year 2022 CIP, BWS, and operating summary. And I'm going to turn it over to our to Jeanette Cudmore, our Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. President, if it's okay, before Ms. Cudmore starts,
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move to authorize the Commissioner President to sign the employment contract for the golf course managers with the terms and conditions as indicated.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and second. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. We'll now turn it over to Ms. Cudmore.
Thank you. I have Jody Crosby with me, Deputy Director.
Very good.
Take this mask off and then put the glasses on.
We have enough distance, so you can take it off.
You sure? Okay.
Yes.
All righty. Here we go. This is really follow-up from December 2015. No, not 2015. December 15th,
2020.
2020. Losing track. That's not a good sign.
Your microphone.
Oh, I have to be on the microphone. Maybe they didn't hear me
Pull
say
it closer to you, whatever.
December 15th. There you go.
There you go.
All righty. So we have a big package in front of you today. Mainly, we want to talk about and really get through our CIP for 2022 and 2027 through 2027. And then at the end, we'll kind of give you a brief review of where we are at our operating revenues and expenses. So hold on to your hat. Let's go ahead and turn. So you'll see the agenda. That's on the next page, and you'll see we'll go through the capital improvement budget. We have our CIP group here, so if you have any questions on any of the project sheets, they'll be happy to come and join us at the table. Then we'll go into the operating budget. We'll talk about, like I said, the revenue summary. We have an update on the income tax and the property tax assessments. We've got some property tax credits to talk to you about. And then at the end of that, we have the retiree health insurance and elected officials. We have a memo on that that Catherine will be coming up and joining us with. Okay? And the next work session, well, we're next week. I told my husband to stay in North Carolina while we go through March Madness, where we have our work sessions. I think Commissioner Hewitt had said this morning, this is the first of the 5 every week through the end of March. So, yeah, we stay pretty busy, and lots of decisions that'll be made in the next 5 weeks. So let's go ahead and turn. All right, if we go to page 1. This is similar to what you saw last year. We are now balanced. Our CIP is balanced. All the revenue sources are balanced with all the project expenses. That's when Jeanette did the happy dance. Okay, so you can see on this page, if you start from the left-hand side, we start with where we were in the FY 2021 approved. You can see that we started off with projects for 22 at $79.1 million. We came in with changes, reductions of 24.4, and right now, the 2022 CIP is at $54.7 million. Okay? Based on that, we actually have bond funding. We are using a prior authority that we had from the prior year of about 13.3, and new authority for 12.1. which equals the $25 million. Then, as I indicated, that we have roughly $7 million for each year for transfer tax that we can actually apply. So I applied all those, and these are more likely for projects that are like ag, preservation, projects that are smaller in size that may not have the life, or they may not be really related to an asset when we use the transfer taxes. We actually are using $785,000 of impact fees, and again, we are on our 4th year of impact fee with the new calculation. And we collect them for the Board of Ed, parks, and highways, and then we use the fees based on growth. So when we get to that sheet in here on impact fees, I have the updated calculation, so if we have new seats, we can use it for the Board of Ed. If we have a new road, we can use those costs. Or if we have a new park, we can use those costs. And I know that we've now submitted legislation for excise tax, and then we'll have to come up with a new calculation probably when we do the excise tax. Okay? But right now, while we still have the impact fee, we'll we'll just be consistent and update and use the current calculation. So that's on page 1. So this is FY 2022, we're balanced. And as I go through this, I know I talk fast. If you have any questions, just let me know, okay? Page 2, this is now our budget book format with the projects that go from FY '22 through FY 2027. There's not much detail in here, and reason being is that we have all the CIP sheets in the back in a separate package, and then Jody will go through those based on any questions you may have. But just like 22, 23 through 27 are also balanced with your revenue sources, okay? So on page 2, we can see highways, land conservation, marine, public facilities, and recreation and park projects. And then on page 3, we go into the public school projects. Then as we go through, you can see, then we have the totals by capital project summary, okay? So you can see for highways, it ranges in 8.8 million, and it goes up to, the biggest year is actually 2023 for 21 million. And then below that, you can see the funding by source. Okay, so you can see all the state and federal, the impact fees that are allocated to schools, roads, and parks, the transfer tax, which is $7 million a year. I made that work nicely. Ag regradation, ag transfer, then forestation, critical area, and private funding. And then we have bonds. Bonds are always, the one that we kind of concentrate on. And you can see we start off in 22 with bonds of the 25.5. Then we go to 37 in 23, all the way up to 8.9 million in 2027. And the average bonds over the 6 years is 25.3. So that number has actually come down compared to past years, okay? But all the CIP sheets that are on these 2 pages are in the back in the separate package, okay? All right. Then we look at page 4, and this is our bonds by year. Okay, and we need this, especially when we're asking for bond authority for each year. And you can see at the top left, it shows our current bond authority. We've currently got $99.1 million of bond authority. Okay, projects that are currently from FY 2021 and past that we have not borrowed yet is 85.5, which leaves approximately $13.5 million of bond authority that we can use for FY 2022. All right, so if you look at the first column, you'll see a bunch of green. What does the green mean? The green means we're getting ready to have a bond sale this spring. So all the projects that are highlighted in green in your first column are the funds that we will be borrowing in the next bond sale. So we'll be doing adult detention center for 10.4, bridge culvert for 1.9, multi-purpose field for 5.4, recreation facility and park improvements for $2 million, and then on page 5, it continues with some projects from the Board of Ed. Hollywood Elementary School, HVAC, Park Hall, and safety and security projects. All of those greens add up to be about $29.8 million, and then we're adding $140,000 for bond issuance cost. We actually reduced our bond issuance cost. The last sale, we had $175,000. So based on our current and our last cost that we had last year, we were able to reduce it and use more money for the projects. Okay? Then you can see going in the out years, 22 through 27, it shows all the projects that are using bond funding. All right? And we'll bring back, I think it's March 16th, the resolution for the bond sale, which will identify the projects, and you'll pass that because we have to have the bond resolution approved first prior to the sale, which makes sense. So also on the projects that are being sold, the 29.8, of that, $16.4 million is actually spent through through January 31st. So of course, when we sell that $30 million, just like when we sold the $30 million last spring, we are pretty much drawing it down immediately.
Now, when you think about drawing $30 million, did you say fall, or when was it?
We'll be drawing it probably the next day or within that, probably in May or June.
When are we going to go to the bond rating agencies?
We do a presentation to the bond rating agencies. It's planned right now for April 14th and 15th.
Okay, right.
And we plan to sell, I think it's May.
Okay, so May.
In May, yes, and then we'll close by May 25th.
Got it.
Okay? So as soon as we close, we'll be drawing down the majority of that $28 million, because right now, through January, we've already spent almost $17 million right now.
What I'm getting at is, what I'm reading, tea leaves, I'm reading Wall Street Journal and whatnot, is rates are going up.
Yes,
Pressure on rates, bond yields are going up, so rates are going to be going up.
right. Okay? All right. And again, yes, like I've said in the past, when we sell bonds, it's based on cash flow. So when we get to a certain amount of expenditures, that's when we start planning the next bond sale. So that's when I identified, I think last October, we needed to start the process because we had exceeded the 10 million. So that's how much since,
One more time. The 10 million was our policy goal, but we're up to 17 now.
right,
And the reason we've gotten so high is we've just,
we're spending the money.
well, I
Yeah,
understand that part, but we haven't gone and asked for it.
no, we haven't. No, we'll be asking for it when we sell this spring.
Okay.
Okay? All righty. Page 6 is the updated debt capacity. The way it's, our CIP is balanced, and we are well within our debt affordability measures, okay? We just got our constant yield letter, which I'll be talking about a little bit later when I get to the operating, but with that, it actually increased the assessment for, if you see the box where FY22 is, it actually increased the assessment to 13.6 billion, okay, which was really a 3.2% increase over the 2021. So how I do the projections on this is I take the 3 years, I take the 1.8 from 2020, the 2.7 in 21, and the 3.2 in 22, take an average of that. That gave me the growth for the out years of the 2.5%, okay? So that means if our assessable base is grown by 2.5, it allows us to have we take that times the 2.15%, our debt limit, to give us our debt margin, the amount of debt that we're allowed to have. Okay? So you can see the first yellow line that goes across, our outstanding debt as a percent of base. You know, we're currently 1.85% in FY22. And this, of course, includes the debt of Metcom. And then our highest year is in 2026 at 2.13%.
Tell me, I know we only go back to 2020, and I've been sitting here since, 14 or 16, whatever year it was. Bottom line is we've been flat for a long time,
Yes.
and now we're starting to come out of that flat, and it seems to be pretty dramatic, that 3.2. I mean, I was surprised at some of those,
Well, that's the assessment growth. It's really related to that.
so the 2.5 could be conservative.
Yes. Yes.
But isn't it fair to sit there and say that assessment growth that took place in 2022 is because of the new assessments that came out, which wrapped basically all of my district, the southern part of the county, into it?
Group 3.
So all the,
They don't put the southern part. I thought that was next year.
no, we got this year.
No, it was in District 3.
So
Group 3.
this year is the south end, which is Lexington Park and South, and that was what attributed a tremendous amount of the growth over these years because of the increase in the assessment, primarily of the commercial property.
Okay, I got you. So you're talking Lexington Park South, and North Lexington Park.
Actually, it's California,
Hollywood, and then.
yeah.
Right. And I've got the map in the back, so you'll.
That's okay.
Yeah,
But the point is, the point I'm trying to make here is that the increase is due to the proximity of the neighborhoods that are being assessed this time.
Right.
So it is the southern of the county, the base, the contractors, all that kind of stuff.
And that's why I use, because it's a triennial assessment.
that.
And that's why I do an average of 3 years for this.
I want the public to understand that it's not an anomaly, it's just the way the third year works in the cycle of what it is.
But do you think that when Lexington Park gets hit, it's always higher than, say, the other two districts?
I think that when they assess Lexington Park every so many years, every 3 years.
Every 3 years, yeah.
The growth that Lexington Park incurs gets.
Is higher than the rest of the county.
Agree.
There was
Yes.
also a big increase in commercial property value.
Yeah.
Right.
This last time, that made a
Yeah,
big
there
jump.
was.
Right.
It was commercial property value. Went
Right.
up, way up.
So
And
you
then
could- You could rightly figure there might be 3.2 this year, but next year, when you go back up to the north end of the
Do you
county,
think it could
It could
drop?
come.
the number should drop.
Yeah.
At least that's how it's always in the 11 years I've been doing this, that's generally the way it works. I can't
But I
predict
know
if
it was
it's
flat for a long time, Todd. It was like, I remember get 3 years in a row of the same,
1%, right.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
or very little.
No, I think our assessments are finally starting to get to where they almost need to be. But we're finally starting, and it's not just St. Mary's County, it's the state, it's national. We took a dip. There's a chart in here when we get to that, and I'll show you, where you
Okay.
can see that it drops, and now we're starting to come back up for the statewide. Okay? So that brings us down, and thank you, Commissioner Morgan. So you can see that that brings us to the middle, and again, like I said, the average bond per year is about 25.3 million. So then we took that, and I applied, you'll see the GOB line where it shows 2/23, 2021. Those are the bonds that came from the sheets prior that get put into this calculation. And then that line where it shows new bonds unissued, I tried to keep that because on average, we've been about 30 million each year. So you're getting the bonds, you're spending it. It almost takes you 2 years to spend. So that's kind of where, when I get around $60 million, I try to keep it 60 or lower so that I know. So that's why I kind of determine how much of a bond that we might need each year. Okay, so you can see we're currently getting ready for the sale for $30 million. We sold $30 million last year. And 22, I'm projecting we'll need a $20 million sale.
in what year, please?
And 22, next year.
Okay.
And again, the timing of the bond sale is based on bond expenditures. Okay? All right, and then from there, you can see at the bottom, we have our general fund operating budget based on what we have now, as this is recurring operating budget. And yes, we do see an increase this year, and I'll talk about that later. And then we apply that next to our debt service expenditures that are above, and then that's our other measure. We have our outstanding debt as a percent of base, which I already told you, and we are at 1.85%. Right now, our debt service as a percent of revenues for 22 is 5.62%. And the policy is to keep it below 10%. So we are well within our measures. So you're doing a great job.
So when are you going to talk about this jump in operating revenues from 248 to 265?
In a little bit.
Okay.
Let me get through CIP,
No,
please.
please, yeah.
Okay. All right. Page 7, Jody's going to talk about the operating impacts.
Yes, on page 7 details the operating impacts of the capital improvement projects for fiscal years 23 through 2027. We've had 2 changes since our last meeting. The first is the animal shelter increase of $88,000. And this was actually, the overall impact didn't change. It's just the change from 22 to 23. So it's just a difference between those 2 years.
Is it FTEs or is it?
Well, it's the increase from 22 compared to 23. So they had less of a cost in 22. So the change is greater in 23. But the overall is not greater, because it's an incremental change.
Okay. I mean, I'll let you, I'm just worried about this animal shelter. I'm hearing about tier 2, plus I'm hearing about, the earthwork, and now it's, do they want another vet or do they want, it's just a lot of moving pieces out there with that animal shelter.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And the second item is the Emergency Communication Center expansion. That cost was added. That's $17,935.
Now, I looked at that. That's $635 a square foot. For the EMS expansion.
Let me flip to that. See if
Well, again, I hate to take you off. I know you're on a roll, and we'll probably get to it at some point in time.
those
but
are the only 2 changes. So
I got a
that's,
bunch of reds in mine, so I was.
Oh, okay. So when we get to the CIP.
I can wait.
Okay.
All right. Page 8 is the updated impact fee calculation. All righty. So last year, our actual calculation it ranged from $4,989 down to $5,686 based on dwelling. You can see that year 3 fee, FY 2021. So again, we calculate the fee the same way. We use a number of items and variables that help us calculate it. We'll start at the top. you'll see the average annual new residential dwelling units that paid an impact fee for the most recent fee. The average is 276, so that number was updated. And we get that information from Land Use and Growth Management. Then we have the median residential sales by quarter annualized. That's 309,820. That is the average sale of St. Mary's County homes for FY 2020. And you'll remember that that number actually went up. Last year, it was 289.9. So I have that information, that one sheet that shows all the residential sales for the state is on page 28, and we'll go through those when we get there. The taxable household accounts, the $47,449 comes from the treasurer when she runs the levy in August, okay? And then the estimate for the population comes from the Department of Chamber and Commerce, their brief economic facts, okay? And then from that, it calculates the people per household. So like we did last year, we start with what are the assets. We had to change the calculation because of the drop in enrollment for the Board of Ed. We no longer had schools in the CIP, new schools, and that was part of the original calculation. So what we did last year, we actually are going to now, we were calculating schools the same way we calculate roads and recreation and parks to be consistent. So we take the actual cost of the assets in the audit, we divide that by the population, and then we end up with a cost per person. That times the persons per household comes up with a Board of Ed calculation of 8,437. They are 57.06% of the impact fee. We do the same thing for roads. We took their assets, again, took an estimate, divided it by the estimated population to get a cost per person times the persons per household. That brings them to 5,547, which is 37.51% of the fee. And then the round out, we have Parks and Recs, and their assets are lower at $38 million, and the same calculation bringing their fee up to $802. That brings the total impact fee associated with each dwelling unit at $14,785. But based on how the study group came up with years ago, less the average debt associated with capital projects, we do a calculation on the average debt for the last 5 years. It's 65%. That number increased. Last year, the average debt was 59% for the prior 5 years. So the reason why we back that out is because for our debt in our CIP, the debt service is paid in the general fee fund. And remember, your general fund is funded by the property tax. So we didn't want to tax people twice or charge them twice. We're already charging them for the debt service from their property tax. Same thing with, we didn't want to charge the same group because we receive transfer tax. So that's where less the transfer tax, and that's what, 1% of the actual sales. So when we get that, so we take the 309, the median residential sales per quarter, times 1%, and that's where we back out 3,098, so that we don't have that part of the calculation, because we're collecting transfer taxes for that part. So that takes the 14 less the average debt of 9,600 less the amount we plan on collecting for transfer tax down to a 2,077. Now you're saying, well, that's pretty low. Well, it is low, but because we started this phase in, the numbers were higher, and you can see if you go down to the bottom, year one, the fee ranged from $6,071 to $6,400. That's when we had the Board of Ed projects in here, and the calculation was a lot higher. And the same thing with the year two. Those were actually higher too. And then you can see that we dropped down to 4,989 in 2021. Well, because the fees were higher, we're taking the combination of what the fee was last year and reducing it by the change in the fee for this year to kind of get to where the phase-in is, okay? So realistically, so right now, the year 4 fee is $3,325 for 22. That's for your dwelling of 0 to 1199, $3,604 for the next dwelling size, and then 2,400 square foot and above, $3,881. So if you take that average fee which to me, I calculated 3,603 based on the dwellings. That times the number of dwelling permits, the 276, it comes up pretty much with your annual collections of roughly 994,000, and that's pretty close to what we've been collecting for the last couple of years. Okay?
So that's been following estimates, revenue estimates?
Yes.
Actual's been following?
Yep, so we collect the revenue, and then we apply it to the projects that are related to growth. Now, I know when we change and when we get the excise tax approved, and I think that's supposed to start, I think, based on the current legislation, I think fiscal year 2023. Hopefully, when it gets approved, we'll have to get another calculation. We should not be using the same calculation because we'll be wanting to collect it maybe from different groups and then use it for different ways. So I think at that time, we're probably going to have another study done or have a consultant come in here and help us calculate what the estimated excise tax will be for the county.
I think what the public should note is while this number is going down, one of the significant reasons is education.
Sure.
Because we're not building new schools.
Right.
We are not collecting the impact fee up front for that school.
Right.
Hence, the money doesn't come in but simultaneously. The monies that the state allocates down here is based upon a formula. And St. Mary's has been penalized in the formula because we haven't had the enrollment increases necessary to justify a new school, that we're working on a formula that's based upon what we have done in the past, which is to renovate, recondition, repurpose the schools to a better usage.
Right.
And unfortunately, Annapolis has changed the rules around a little bit, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and because the renovation of a project or a school is not the same thing as adding a new school.
Correct.
So we don't use the impact fee money for renovating a school. So that's where we're using more bond funds, or we're using the transfer tax to help supplement that. But the impact fee is coming down for that. The others are going up.
Correct.
Right. But I really believe that once we get that excise tax, when that gets passed, that we probably should have a consultant, and we'll have to discuss that next year for the 2023, during the 22, and then maybe, see if we can get some help in calculating.
Well, with the excise tax, we could look at the renovations and factor that into the excise tax.
Right.
Without being restricted by the impact fee and its schools. But tell me, someone wants to do multifamily, like someone's putting up an apartment building with, 1, 2, 3-bedroom apartments in it. I would assume that the one bedroom, if it's under 1,200 square feet, pays, does that whole structure pay one fee, or does each individual unit get
I think
added
it's for
up?
each individual dwelling unit.
Okay, so if you
Yeah.
get 20 in there, you're going to have 20. And if it's 10 under 12s, you'll have 10 of those.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and legal can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's per dwelling unit. Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's single-family home or...
right. It's based on the dwelling size.
Yeah.
Okay? So more to come on impact fees, but that is our actual calculation for FY 2022.
Well, I think you ought to just leave them where they are. Because you not really want to fool with this. I see you're looking for a approved impact fee calculation.
Right.
And
At the updated calculation.
so, is now the time to make that...
If you'd like to have a vote, that would be great.
Well, I believe that we should keep it the way it is until we figure out what happens with the excise tax.
You're saying to keep the
Well, keep this
impact fee?
formulation you have going on here.
Oh, yeah, keep the calculation the way we're using it, yes, and use the updated calculation for FY '22.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
when the new, whatever comes out of Annapolis...
Then we'll have a new calculation
Yeah,
to
new
approve
baseline.
at that time, correct? Right.
Agree. So the motion would be to approve the 5-year phase-in plan for the county impact fee
As currently...
at the current rate, which would be, according to our chart, year 4 fee, fiscal year 2022. The phase-in rate.
Yes.
That's my motion.
You get that motion, County Administrator?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
One down.
All right.
Okay.
That's exciting. We love direction. All right, so then we go on page 9, and then we've got about, 5 or 6 CIP sheets that Jody will go over the changes. And we have the CIP group behind us, so if you'd like to have them come up while we're discussing their sheets, they can have a seat right over here.
Okay.
Well, I had Okay.
Did you have another question?
No, I had a question about this, starting on the CIPs.
Oh, okay.
You're the lady.
She's the lady.
Now tell me, it looks like the jail, I'm assuming everything's going as planned with that. There's no overruns or anything no bad soils or anything that's,
Talking about the adult detention center on page 9?
yes, I'm sorry, PF 1709, yeah.
Okay.
Page 9,
Page 9.
Adult Detention Center. Is that going fine there, Director Dietrich?
Construction's been going quite well. I'm pleased to
Okay, so you don't
report
have any surprises, you haven't run into anything you didn't expect?
every day, but I don't want to be flippant, but there is surprise, but the team has really done a great job in handling them and keeping to the budget.
Okay, where I'm
Really
going.
happy with it. Yeah, they did when I looked at the weekly report, which is the daily sheets from each day and the photographs and all that, it's fantastic. It's really coming together.
Well, but if I look at this, anticipated project completion is June of '22. So we're looking at staffing. I know the sheriff has requested for staffing, but my point gets to be, do we need the staffing ahead of the facility? If we don't have the facility until June of '22, is it reasonable to think you're figuring that June '22 looks pretty good? That's my question.
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
I won't, well, no. Do you think it'll be done by June of '22? Do you think the building will be done?
Yes, the renovation to the existing structure is kind of the next part, and that's going to be as you know, when you rehab anything, it's a slow process.
Again,
So,
is June
but
of
that'll get us
2022
done
a good
June of
date?
'22. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll use June of '22 as a good date. All right. I was just trying to understand if we're having any potential problems there.
Knocking on wood, no.
All right. I don't know if anybody else has questions.
All right.
And then, again, to the animal shelter. I
The
saw
next
this-
one, that's the next one?
Page 10.
Page 10? Okay.
I saw that personalized services go to 762,000, personal services. Now, are we going to put our own people in there, or are we putting contracted help in there? I mean, help me out with that one more time.
So when you receive the operating impact request or the operating request for the animal shelter, you'll see a request, one for startup costs to open the shelter, which is anticipated the last month of the fiscal year 2022. Then you'll see 1/12 of annual operating expenses on another ECC, and then
So this is kind of going through a couple of years, a couple of different years.
right, and then you'll see the staffing request where the project manager starts on January 1 and the rest of the staff start
Right.
month 11 of the year. So these costs are then, when you go to 2023, you're going to have your first full year impact of these costs of the annual operating.
That's another budget year, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's this 2023, yes. So
I mean,
these costs reflect what's in the operating budget request.
Well, I guess my point is that '23 year is going to be a whopper, because we're going to have the jail opening about the same time we got the animal shelter opening.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a
True.
good thing to know.
Okay. Okay, page 11 is the Emergency Communication Center, where they've added some operating impact for 2024 with the details in the discussion section.
Okay, this is the one that's $630 a square foot. $3.4 million was for the sheriff's office at 50, and we're basing, I mean, do we need bulletproof glass? Is that what, I mean, we're not going to have holding cells and stuff in there, are we?
I think it's a hardened facility, isn't it?
But isn't it already a hardened, I mean, early last term, we did a roof on there to withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds or something. I just wondering what they're doing for $630 a square foot.
We're actually kind of expanding the building in all directions to fill the available space. Again, that's in doing some renovations. So again, that's pretty expensive construction work. And also we have to keep them in full operation during the project.
Okay, it said the expansion includes approximately 2,360 square feet. And you're going to do that for $2.34 million?
That's correct.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah, it is high because, again, we're keeping the existing operation going while we renovate. It's kind of like flying the airplane
Occupied
while you're
school.
putting it together.
Like doing
and-
an occupied
Yeah.
school, trying to.
And, but to pull the walls out, all, on all four sides of the building, adding all that hurricane-proof work, again, very expensive construction, but it's very important for
Now-
this facility to be expanded as well as being secure.
I mean, it wouldn't be cheaper for us just to build another building, say where Garvey Center currently sits?
There's still people in the Garvey Center now.
Well, hopefully when the other one opens, they'll move over there. Or something. But you'll still have people over in this building when it's all said and done? Wherever on it.
There is a transition plan that we've worked on, but that's some time off. And the EOC, when FEMA came in and MEMA came in to evaluate the facility, Steve and I talked about that, and they came down pretty hard on our existing facility being too small and not being adequate to handle a major event.
Okay, I mean, I'm not trying to,
Steve you'd have to talk to Steve to get more detail on that, but that's my understanding
Seems like a lot
when
of
we
money.
talk to them.
Mr. Dietrich, does the $630 per square foot include the $20 contingency, 20% contingency?
Yes, that's 20% contingencies built into the
It
project.
is $630 a square foot.
Correct.
So that'd be, what, Mike, $1,226 off per square foot if you make it without the
well,
contingency?
that's a pretty good contingency, but
Well, it's a huge contingency.
Huge, yeah.
So they've banked a lot of money for extras. TBD, I guess.
It's just this phase of the project we're in right now until we get concept design done. That's something more than the sketch Gary Whipple did. We need to carry that much.
I guess the point that I would say, and I think Commissioner Hewitt will agree with me, it'd be really nice if we can come in under $630 a square foot, recognizes a 20% contingency in the bill, so 20% on $2,342,000 is $500,000.
Correct. Yeah, one thing we always try to do is give money back, and of course, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen, and it's just a very expensive, difficult to figure out project that we got to do.
The
Also
630,
have-
does the 630 also include a relocation of any utility lines and things like that?
There's a
Also?
water line in there that I know about. I'm not sure about the rest.
Okay. Does also include some certain amount of, also construction, you tearing down stuff, you got
Right.
walls you have to move, and
Right. I mean, you're
that
effectively.
630 square feet includes all of this. Because
The
you get into
renovation.
tearing something down and then putting something new up, there's a lot more cost involved.
Right. And we got to keep, again, the buildings secure and operating
At the same time.
while we're doing it. Right. And most of the expansion goes out and takes out that extra little strip of roadway. You see the animal control officers.
They're using right now.
parking.
Right, right.
And they'll be shifted over to the animal shelter soon.
Right, eventually,
So-
yeah. Hope the animal shelter will be open before this is done, yeah,
Correct.
right.
well, help me with my arithmetic, you know? So we're looking at total cost $2,342,400 for 2,360 square feet. That looks like $1,000 a square foot. I mean, I know I'm being rudimentary here, but when I take that number and divide 2,360 square feet into it, that's, looks like that square footage price is higher than, I mean, you guys got MBAs in business, you ought to be able to do that arithmetic too. But,
I look at this project, and, I've gone back and forth on it several times, not only for the expense, but the effectiveness of it, and the fact that they got to stay in operation, which drives the price up. I know MEMA and FEMA came down and said the facility's too small, but that's also based on how it's laid out currently. So I don't think we're getting the best bang for our buck out of this at all. When you look at the fact that we have the Garvey Center and they can be moved about and people are being moved, there's no reason that administrative offices can't be separate from the secure facilities. I mean, it's commonplace. So when you look at who's doing what, there's no reason that the Garvey building couldn't be secured and utilize that office space that's over there. NCIC, things like that, they got to be behind the secure doors, things, when we're doing it. But the EOC, I don't understand why we can't move administrative support services over to the Garvey building, saving us a significant amount of money, and thereby opening up the space in that facility.
There's actually not a lot of space available in the Garvey Center. It's just basically the old exercise room and the old kitchen, because Laurie Harris's staff still occupies, and it's actually a fairly small building, and they occupy the rest of that
They
building.
occupy the upstairs and a small part of the
the first
bathroom all
floor.
back in there.
Yep.
But you got the exercise area, kitchen, and then there was a recreational room
All right.
that could all be used. I mean, I don't know how big, not that, you're right, it's not that big.
But how many of them are staying over there? That's the thing.
Just Harris's group is staying there.
Yeah.
We'll also have animal control leaving this building, too.
Well, that's of course the other point. You have animal control that's leaving as well, which is going to open up
It
some.
opens up about two or three more offices over there that'll be open on this
Right.
end of the building.
Yeah, I mean, there's the you have the backup center as well, which why that's not the greatest facility to want to do.
Yeah,
I don't know how
yeah.
that's going to be upgraded, but to a certain extent, you almost feel like you got to use what you have already, especially when you're in current operations. I mean, this is.
Has anybody looked at moving some of the administrative staff over here or somewhere else other than staying there?
Yeah, well, we did
that
go
be-
through a square footage study.
Did you?
Dr. Bridget ran that about a year, seems like a year
Yeah,
ago.
it's been a while, yeah.
And a key to that is Potomac Building and getting the HVAC system and some other items renovate, get that done, and then we can make better use of that building. Right now, we don't have any real swing space. With the Board of Elections moving into the old Armory building, that was really it. And alcohol and beverage control kind of, spread out in that building. The second floor is the archives of that old sheriff's building, and we're pretty tight right now.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you where you can help me. I figured out where you got your 635, because it does talk about the preliminary planning phase estimate for construction is $1,487,000. So I see how you got your 630 a square foot. But what would be helpful is, I guess any kind of construction I'm familiar with, the total cost is divided into the square foot. I mean, that would include the engineering, the inspection work, the utility relocation. It's all part of the project. So if you could help us out with, I don't see $1,487,000 and anywhere, I see construction work $1,784,400. But if you could help me out with how you got to, you got a building 2,360 square feet, and you're spending $2,342,000. If you could refigure that and help me out with what's paying for what, because even if you had $1,487,000, but then you go down for another 75, then another 100, and 75, 50. Well, maybe it's the 20% contingency, Todd. Maybe
That's all I can think of.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I consider too. It's added in there,
The
obviously. Yeah.
contingencies included in the
It's-
1.7.
correct.
So
Yeah, it's in the construction.
The 20% contingency brings it up to 1.7.
Right.
It's still a hell of a lot of money.
Boy, is it ever. Wow.
For 2,000 square feet. I mean,
Wow.
that's,
Taj Mahal.
no, yeah, but I mean, that's why, for 2,000 square feet, I mean, so many other things you could do.
Well, again, give us some clarity on that if you, maybe you already have, but is a 20% a reasonable number?
In my opinion, it is, given the early stage of this project.
That's 450,000.
And before we talk about how we actually move exterior walls out, figure out how to do that while keeping the building running, so forth. I mean, you essentially have to build the outer shell over the existing building and then go back in and start
It seems like it'd be
to
cheaper
pull
to build
things
something
into
else.
it.
Build another
I-
building and, I mean, if you're moving animal warden or whatever,
So Commissioners, would you like us to bring this one back next week with the space needs study about where all those folks were moving?
Yeah, I think the space needs study, but also at the same time, I think that Mechanicsville Volunteer Fire Department in Golden Beach has their building that they want to do a swap on, basically alleviating their payments. So I think that may be something to look at for space for emergency services that is significantly less expensive.
Good.
It could store equipment, there's office space, there's plenty of things there. We need to start looking a little outside of the box when it comes to,
I would say location-wise would be an issue, though.
it's part of the bigger
That's sort of
picture.
far away.
Yeah.
That's pretty far away.
Leonardtown, that's a half hour, 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
That's a little bit further than the normal person will want to drive for these things.
Anyway, this one just gives me pause, because the 630 seems low, considering what I'm getting, but it's way too high. I don't know, maybe it's,
So we'll revisit that one and bring
Visit
it
this
back next
project.
week.
this one
with
looks
some
like a
additional
complicated
information.
project to build a building over a building.
Right.
Tear down, I don't
Yeah,
know, but
that's the plan. But, we'll come back to you. Maybe there's something we'll see when we go back through that space needs study that'll either find another alternative or, until we move the sheriff's office out of the Patuxent building, there's not going to be a large block of space available anywhere.
Not only that, but you're building a building over a building. But we own that parking lot out there. So, I mean, based on how much parking we have, what we can do, I don't know why the building couldn't go out, and that would be way less expensive than the ladder. So I think maybe there's some options that need to be looked at here. There definitely is.
Okay, yep. Come
I'd
back
say-
to you next
We
week.
use our
with
new
that.
fancy calculator to come up with this number? Our estimating calculator? Remember, we have the new,
Yeah, we're going to go back through this
I'm just saying, do we use the estimating calculator to come up with these numbers?
means, and then working with Steve on costs that he's got from other locations. and-
Okay, thank you.
Right,
There's
and
like
then
a little
going
bit
back to that
breakdown on this
original cost to put the new roof and the storm shutters and do the hardening of the building originally, that Gary actually ran that project, so.
So we can come back next week with more
Yeah.
information on this project.
Yeah,
Maybe some-
yeah.
I'd be glad to.
And since we're building space here that seems to be office space, administrative space, how much hardening do we have to have for that? I mean, is that part of I know we got a security 911 center and things like that, but how much is this hardening cost in part of this?
Yeah, we'll
820
come
square
back
foot?
to you with all that.
Okay, yeah, okay, good. Okay, we'll bring that back then next week, is that right?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, good. Moving on.
Okay, we're on.
Nick,
Go ahead.
I was just going to talk about the fire and rescue loan.
That's on the next page.
Yeah. Now, I think this would be the ideal time if we're going to, I think there's enough consensus on this board that we want to give Second District back their $84,000 recordation.
I agree.
Now, but I also believe that Bay District did their building, so did Mechanicsville's. I can't imagine who else. Rescue Squad did theirs. That you take a look and see what that total number, I mean, I don't expect you to have it now, but that, come back at a later date with what that total number would be to refund those funds to those entities that paid it in. I don't know what makes sense as far as how far back we go. I know when Hollywood built their building, 30 years ago or how many years ago, they built it for $3 million. I've been driving by that beautiful Second District firehouse down there. That thing's going to be a
Right, and I have actual,
Taj Mahal, but that baby's going to be nice. It is
Good building.
huge.
I have information from the clerk's office on who was paid
Oh,
the
you do?
recordation tax, I think from a number of years ago.
Okay,
That
so you
goes
can get
back.
that number
Depending
later.
on the type of loan, that determine who paid and when. But I have that information, and I can provide that to you.
Again, it's about fairness,
Right.
fair to all the departments.
Okay, getting back to Fire and Rescue Revolving Loan Fund, do we have any questions on this? Or do you want to go through the changes?
We just deferred the $100,000 that we'd need to contribute from 2023 to 2024 based on the request we received from the fire departments and rescue squads.
Okay.
Turning to page 13, it's the radio system upgrades. This is a new project submitted since our last meeting.
And I think Steve is in the lobby if you'd like him to talk about the new project.
Wasn't that Harris Motorola thing supposed to be the end-all, be-all? We're done, but I guess these radios got to be upgraded.
Here he comes.
This is at Maryland First.
You upgrading your radios again?
No, sir.
Okay, good.
So that was on my consolettes, is that?
Yes.
So if you recall, when we were building out and finishing the Harris Tower system, one of the big discussions from our fire departments was we have to be able to talk to Calvert and talk to the other counties.
Right.
So that's what this does. These consolettes allows us to use the Maryland First system and allows us to talk directly to Calvert. So that's the end of that project. And we've been waiting for that to occur, but the state of Maryland and Calvert has now come to the point where we're ready to do that. That's what this is.
Congratulations.
I'm sorry?
Congratulations.
So what are these, the translation devices from Harris to Motorola?
Correct.
Okay.
And they look like base stations, but they're a lot more advanced. But again, it allows us to talk directly to them, and without that, we still have
Do we
some-
have any other gaps that we need to fill in that radio communication world?
There's a couple other improvements we can do, but we have a lot on our plate right now and a lot of our,
Good, good.
a lot of other expenses, so we'll get there in the next year or two. But no, sir, I think, again, knock on wood, we've been going good, I think, for almost 2 years now, and very happy to say.
Good, good. I know this commissioner doesn't want to go through a Harris Motorola thing.
I don't think there's a need, but I think now we got to maintain it and make sure it continues to work.
I agree.
So-
I mean, it's important everybody communicates.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Page 14 is our regional meat processing facility. Some language was updated based
Now, who's
on
doing this one? Is this
prior
District 2?
discussions.
So just an update, we had a meeting with the SMATIC, and the red line version is an approved copy with Department of Economic Development, the Ag Division, and SMATIC. And Chris Castellamus begged off this afternoon, but he normally would present this. And so you might remember when we came to you before the holidays, we were looking at any synergy between North County Farmers Market and the RAC, and so this now is a standalone project, and it's updated, and that's what you see in the project description.
But it seemed like we had some issues with estimates, that some estimates were 2.7 million, and some estimates were 4 million. And did we ever figure out what that happened with that?
We currently have an RFP out, waiting for responses next week for a design consultant who will have an expert on the team that knows how to do this, because quite honestly, we don't. We're
We'll
not
find out if it's
experts on meat
27
processing.
is a real number?
Yeah, so the idea is for them to give us a concept design for a facility that we can get done for 2.7 there on the Charlotte Hall Convenience Center site.
I'll preface that.
Help me out with this.
I'll be glad to. As we do projects around here over these years, we have a tendency to just pile on.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Projects they just grow in scope and size.
Okay.
So what we've done on this one is we made it very clear to SMATIC and a few other people, this is your budget. And we're going to live with this budget whether you like it or not.
Okay.
And so as you see, there's a lot of red lines in the middle of that paragraph. Those are the sort of the add-ons that, the fluff that wouldn't it be nice to have a TV room and a little, a few amenities. So the amenities have been slashed. This is the number. SMATIC understands very clearly what's going on. Dr. Bridge and I've had numerous conversations on this. So there's the number, and you're going to live with the number.
Okay, so we're going to build it for this number. We're
That
just
is
not
the-
sure what we're going to get for the number.
That's about right, but we know we're going to get a lot of what we want, but you might not get all the
Well, let's
fluff.
hope it's not $630 a square foot to build this
I
restaurant.
don't disagree with you.
Yeah. This whole thing, because I heard from people saying, Mike, you can't do it for this. It's going to be more, or it's going to be over $4 million.
I think that was when a lot of the fluff was being added in.
Yeah.
My words.
A lot of the what?
Fluff.
Fluff, thank
A
you.
lot of fluff.
Yeah, good. But I guess what I was hearing that it wasn't practical with the location because of the drainage or the sewage or whatever was an issue with drain fields and site work. Is that all been figured out?
I don't know the answer to that one. I hope it has with the 2.7 million. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, they have to be able to get the basic meat processing facility and the cold storage facility in there for 2.7 on that site, including everything.
But they're going to have septic, because I know they don't have any,
We have to build a fairly large septic system. The exact sizing of that is critical to the cost, obviously, and that's why when in the RFP, we want to make sure there's somebody who's done this before.
okay, when do you think you're going to get your head around the actual cost and what we're going to get for the actual cost we're going to?
About 6 months after we get the contract awarded to the consultant,
So this is like February of 2021. What are we talking?
probably.
No. I know it's
Yeah.
February 2021. What date are you talking? Like
Yeah,
6
so
months on top of
so we're probably
September?
August, September, yeah, right.
If staff wouldn't mind just putting something together on this one for me. I've gotten quite a few questions from people in the north end of the county, in particular Golden Beach, Patuxent Knolls Civic Association, and some other people that frequent the farmers market. They just want some more information on it.
Yeah, we're happy to put a one-pager together for the
Thank you.
commissioners. Yep.
On specifically again?
Golden Beach, Patuxent Knolls Civic Association?
But
Okay.
you asked to have it for you, so we can give it to the commissioners, and then it's a public document that anybody
That's
can
fine. Yeah,
just-
absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so are the Golden Beach folks worried about the rack, or they want to know about the North County Farmers Market?
The rack. Well, they want to know about the rack, yeah. The farmers market, they don't have a problem with. They want to know about this. There's no opposition. They just want to know about it. They think it's a good idea.
4 or 5 miles away.
Yeah, well,
Well, I concur. I mean, everybody kind of wants to know what we got here.
I agree, I'm not arguing with it, I just,
yeah.
Yeah,
That's all
so
it
a
is.
basically a description. We
Yeah.
probably already have it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, the ins and outs of it.
RFP.
They read about it in the newspaper. I started getting some calls, so,
But it was a mistake in the newspaper, right?
yes, that's why I want to add some clarity.
that's no surprise.
I don't know where you got that graphic, but it definitely wasn't the right one.
Now, the next one, page 15, this Shannon Farm property. Getting a lot of people down there who don't like the idea and want it re-entranced and this and that. It sounds like it's getting its share of pushback.
So the plan is to have the entrance through the homegrown farmers market.
I'm
All the
getting-
people I've been in touch with down there.
No, I agree. I mean, it's changed with that coming in, and I'm not trying to say I disagree with what you're saying, Commissioner Call, but I'm saying, we're talking about another $3 million or $2 million, or whatever, $3 million for this Shannon Farms. Now, what you have down there, don't you have Elms Beach, 5 miles away?
Correct.
And the need for this Shannon Farm is predicated on Elms Beach is overrun? Or we?
No, just additional access to the bay, the purchase. So I'm looking for a passive recreation and access to the bay. That's the general mission of the project.
So let me try to explain.
Help.
Shannon Farm some time ago.
Yeah.
And on top of Shannon Farm, we put the homegrown farmers market, and I believe most of the homegrown farmers market was paid for by tobacco dollars. There's still been a big requirement or request to have more access to the bay. So one of the questions or statements that came up was we're going to build a road off Long Lane back in, what that subdivision is called back in, I forget.
Cedar Cove.
Cedar Cove. And Art and I walked back, and you could see where they want to put a road through, and you could see the houses, and we both concurred, well, this is a really stupid idea. Why do I want to build a road through somebody's backyard, going through a swamp and everything else to get there? So we went back and redesigned. I should say they went back and redesigned and came with an idea that you could extend the parking lot of Homegrown Farmers Market back and build a gravel and a little bit of a path, and you would be able to have little rentals, like, you could rent a scooter or something to take your kayak back, or some kind of a cart to push your stuff and take it down to the beach there, and then be able to come back, and that way the neighborhood would not be disturbed, and you would still have access to the beach and be able to provide an extra recreational amenity to the citizens of the
Well,
county.
I guess where I go with this is that it seems like we've had our issues on the Patuxent. We're trying to get, and I guess my priority, if I, one commissioner, would be, the Snow Hill place out there, which I know is also in here. But I guess my thought process is Shannon Farms necessary at this point, while we're focusing on Snow Hill?
Well, for me, a county that's surrounded by water, we have very limited access to the water from the people that live here, except for those of us who live on the water. I live on a farm pond, but
But Randy, I mean.
no. I think this is a great addition to what we've got now. There's not many beaches around here, and that place has got a beach, for Christ's sakes.
It meets the requirements within land
It owns
preservation
beach
and park and
nearby.
recreation plan.
And it's a passive type rec. We're not planning on putting a launching pad down there or building piers and everything. It's going to
No.
be.
Well, you have to have somebody there monitoring people coming in and out, won't you?
We're going to have some staff there, but here, you're not going to have traffic all the way down. So it's going to be about a three-quarter mile, 9/10 of a mile walk.
Walk to
It
get
is
down
going to be,
It's like Myrtle
you brought
Point.
up last time, we will have 10-foot asphalt, as you can see in here now. So that we'll be able to get service trucks there, gators there for potable toilets, to all the cleanliness that needs to be done, for total full accessibility to get there. Then there'll be some small amenities, picnic tables, a small playground, so families can access the bay.
Yeah.
It's outlined in the Land Preservation and Recreation and Parks Plan. And then with the homegrown, I do want to say, if you want to look at an amenity there, the excitement there too with that, possibly coming later and putting a playground there with we're already in partnership with using the restrooms at the homegrown, so that you take that whole project there and you've got a nice little passive amenity in that community. And
Yeah,
plus,
boat launch and whatnot?
no, not in this first phase at all. And again, we've awarded the contract for Snow Hill. So, and it's the same one with Shannon Farm, so we're well on our way. We'll be meeting with them. Shannon Farm, I'll probably be meeting with them in a couple weeks, the contracting firm, because now MDA and Critical Areas Commission are seeing there are some forested wetlands there. And so is it going to be permitted? And then does it get cost prohibitive from there? Right now, it doesn't look that way. But then, things can come in later that says, hey, to get through those wetlands might cost more than what our appetite is, but that's your
Could be a
decision.
soft number.
I'd say right now, I'd say it's 80%. And let's get the walkthrough with MDE, and hopefully that's in a couple weeks, because that just came up with the environmental on the firm. He says, hey, we better look at, there's a lot of forested wetlands with this new concept. And they just got that new concept from us. in their timeline. And so with that, they want to get MDA down, Critical Areas Commission, so we can give you a hard number, a harder one than that. But I don't see it being, with it being a passive park and with the access trail, I don't see it being a great number. It's not going to be a road, Commissioner Hewitt, service area, because we're not going to do the service, and you heard that, and you saw that, and you see that you're.
So tell me how big, somebody who's, that you term less than ambulatory, they can't get around very well. How are they going to get down there?
You're going to take the children when we get there. They're in scooters and strollers, wheelchairs for adults, and it's going to be asphalted 10 foot wide all the way down.
Okay, so it'd be like you're saying 9/10 of a mile or
Yes,
so
sir.
to,
Yeah,
and you got to scooter them and wheelchair them back that far?
Yeah. But at the same time now, let me see.
That sounds like a lot.
It does, but I spent my last 4 or 5 years of my life that way with a parent. And in some ways, that's all part of everybody's wellness and activity and being outdoors. Some of that I regret is thinking that somebody couldn't do. And now I realize that parting a 9/10 of a mile, that's exercise for everybody.
Especially for the pushers.
Yes, it is. I was part of that life.
Now, as far as Elms Beach, nice weekend during the summer, the park fills up. Not a lot of extra capacity in that park, a lot of people coming into it, so I think that's where the need for this
Overflow,
comes
yeah.
in.
Yeah, that will certainly suffice and help. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be coming to you here shortly with the email regarding capacity right now. How do we want to do that in county and out of county so we do keep our capacity for our citizens? I'll be asking some direction from you on that soon.
Now, does this plan for Shannon Farm, does that include any additional parking up at the homegrown market?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
because Saturday morning.
You have auxiliary parking. You're not going to be parking right there because they're going to have their own.
Yep.
Out here, about a couple tents, a parking lot, then that trail comes out.
Perfect.
And I can email you that concept.
Has MDE been down there yet to look at this yet?
No, and I was just
So we
reading-
don't know for sure yet
I
about
was reading
the
this
total
one.
access.
Correct, sir. And I was just reading that.
Are they pretty, when you walk with them, are they pretty receptive to other forms of roadway other than asphalt? I mean, are they receptive to like using crushed shell or whatever?
Oh, absolutely.
To go across some of these? I'm saying that because we use a place called Fort Macon State Park, and it goes through a lot of wetland, and they built some wooden bridges across certain little creeks. The rest of it is this shell type, I don't think it's really oyster shells, whatever, some kind of, the pathway where they're close to the areas of environment that people don't want you to build something on top of. They use this crushed stuff, which you can easily navigate over with
Not in the
anything.
St. Mary's County?
No, it's not in St. Mary's County.
A couple of nice ones in Virginia. But what?
Clamshells.
But I think where I come from is accessibility
Right.
with cost value.
Right.
And if you put those two together, you have it. But
Yeah,
because
I agree.
I do not, the last thing I want to do is spend just and then drive that cost up. But the accessibility needs to be there, then with the cost value, and then navigating through the wetlands.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly, okay.
Accessibility to cost value. I want to write that.
I like that, I like
down.
that, I love
Where did
that.
that come from? Is that like a phrase from a
Oh,
construction manual? or
about
something?
5 seconds ago. It just,
Vici.
I love it, Mr. Shepherd, good job of bringing that up. I like that, I
All
like
right, well,
that.
this one, in my opinion, needs a little bit
another
more
project.
work. I know it's in '23, which is next year, but I'd kind of like to see a little,
and we will, because we're working on it hard with A. Morton Thomas right now. Again, they'll be down in a couple weeks. Those concepts, I'm steadily going, biting them after that.
Very good, when is MDE coming down to look at? Do you have any- they have
Don't
any-
know, but
they have
as
said yet?
soon as she lets me know, I'll inform.
You let me know, I want to go with you.
I'll
Yeah, I
inform
want
the
to go with you.
commissioners so you know.
I wanna see what
And
they
then
gotta say.
the other one is at the same time, with the same group, they were, we're going to be doing Shannon Farms. And they're like everybody else. I said Shannon Farms, Snow Hill.
Yeah.
And they've been on the property and they can't, they said this is just so good piece of property to develop and get out on the river in a boat ramp. They're very excited.
totally agree.
Totally excited.
Let's get that place up and running.
Come on.
Yeah, I want this because people in St. Mary's County deserve to have good access to waterfront property.
Thank you.
This is a great thing.
Thank you.
Page 16, the sports complex. So we have added $150,000 in state funding. 2022.
How you
that
get
great?
that?
That's that state fund grant, they're the bond initiative.
Oh, okay, good. Who's doing that? Is that Crosby or Bailey or somebody like that?
That's Senator Bailey's office.
It's a request that we made, right? We made this
It's the
request.
application
Yeah,
request.
application we made.
Good.
So that is all of the CIP project changes that we have in front of you. We do have all the projects in that separate package. Do you have
But
any?
it's the same thing we just went over.
It is, but it has all of the sheets, so unless there's
All right,
anything.
well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the CIP projects with the changes we just talked about.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I just want to make sure, what were the,
The
We
changes.
approved all the changes to CIP project. We just went
Oh.
through page 9 through
okay, because
16.
we didn't make any changes today.
Well, we asked them to
They gotta
bring
come
back
back.
We actually bring back from last session,
the.
and that was the changes.
Okay,
there.
because
The communications,
building.
right.
Which you saw in red with the changes we.
So we'll just
Yeah.
bring that one sheet back next week.
Now, they're going to bring back the rack too, right? But that's going to probably be a long time from,
So we have page 11 as the expansion for emergency services. That's bringing back the CIP sheet.
Right.
On page 14 for the RAC, we had, you wanted an informational sheet for the public,
Right.
not really any.
Any change, just informational.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was my question, because we didn't make any actual changes to anything today. It
No,
was
so
just
it's
bringing
a-
it back.
Yep, so it's accepting the changes that are the red line
Okay.
version is what we need direction on, with the exception of page 11, because we need to
the
bring
only thing I
that.
would say is be careful of your artist renderings. Now, everybody knows about artistic license. You know, it doesn't have to look like what I'm putting down here because I'm an artist. To make it look like whatever I like. But sometimes that can like give people an idea what something's going to look like. And if it's not going to look like that, or let's make sure we know what it's going to look like before we put it out there. And then the last one was the Shannon Farms. You're going to come back with some more information there.
So we don't have any additional information that we think we will have in the next couple of weeks. I mean, we'll bring that back as we have it. but-
Okay.
But we-
After MDE and whoever looks at whatever.
Right, we'll
Right,
bring you that
right.
updated information. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have a motion and a second.
Well, I
Have a
guess
motion?
I would
Excuse me, go ahead.
offer a friendly amendment that we approve the CI project changes as presented, because there was no changes today that we made,
With the exception of page 11.
with the exception of
Page 11, we did make some exceptions here.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that, got everything down? Does that sound good?
And so Commissioner Hewitt, I think you made the motion. Are you okay with the friendly amendment?
What's it say now? It would
I
say,
said approve the CI project, CIP
You
project
approved CIP
changes.
project changes
and-
except for 11.
Yeah, except for number 11.
all right.
Okay, I have a first and second.
Are you okay with the
That's
amendment? Okay.
Okay, I have a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Continue, please.
All righty, let's look at page 17. And this is a very preliminary revenue summary. This is based really on the latest information that we received from the state on the assessments that we just received on the constant yield tax letter, and then the last update to the income taxes that we received at the end of January. So you can see, we'll start over, and you can see for property taxes and with the income taxes, and the total actual revenues that we received for FY 2020 will start, and that was $247 million. Your actual revenues, excluding your fund balance use of 4.9 in 2021 approved budget, was 248. And this estimate right now, based on the information from the state and also the information that was included in the department's request on their revenues that they maintain, our revenues are at $264,208. $264,208,405. Now, the primary revenues, of course, you know, that make up the bulk of this is our property taxes and income taxes.
Right.
Our other local taxes, yes, you see an increase of $40,000. I'm getting information on a daily basis based on current revenues that are coming in. And one of the ones that I just received yesterday was the latest payment for admissions and amusement tax. I'll just go over what we received was $4,481 for the second quarter of this year, 2021. Last year, the same payment was $46,000.
So again, this is going to hit
This is going to start, right.
Start
We're going to
adding up.
start seeing some of these changes.
The COVID things are starting to hit.
Well, what worries me is going from 248 to 264.
Right, well,
Not understanding the impacts of things like amusement tax and hospitality tax.
all of those other local taxes, the $9.6 million that's in the column for FY '22, I'm going to go back through based on the latest information. I mean, it's just changing on a weekly basis, and I'm going to update those.
Well,
So those will be reduced.
Now, look, here's where I have my disconnect here.
Yes,
It's the 11,303,000 that you're expecting in additional income taxes.
yes.
Okay. We know I've always believed we're somewhat recession-proof having that base out there. And with
As far as
pandemic-
income tax,
Income tax, yeah.
as far as income tax, yeah.
Because those people tend to keep their jobs. We're not seasonal. Anyway, I still don't think we've seen the impact from people who are out of work, the people who are not associated.
No, we haven't. We have not seen
So
that.
to make that number go up 11,303,000, is that based on anything that we've seen that's COVID-related?
No. That, if you turn and look at page 18, the information that we're using, and of course, it's every year when we're estimating any taxes, especially your property tax and your income tax, is based on information we receive from the state, based on the activity and the information. So you can see what we're using for FY '22 is from tax year 2019 at the top.
And that's the issue.
And that is before COVID.
Yeah. So I guess my thought gets to be, is mainly what we've been seeing as far as revenues coming in have been higher than expected.
Yes.
But they've also been compilations of 19 and years prior. Now,
Yes.
we get one at the end of this week, right? Before-
It's due any minute now.
I know, end of February. And with that, would you think that would be our first indicator of COVID impacts?
It is going to be all tax year '20, this payment that we receive. So, and I haven't heard anything yet on how high it's going to be, or is it going to be equivalent to last year's payment or whatnot. And then one thing, it would also makes the calculation for '21 and even '20 and '22 is that we had the rate increase in combination of all these changes. If you look at page, right, if you look at page 29, so we use the information from tax year 2019. And because of the COVID, and we know that revenues we do not want to be overly optimistic. So if you on page 18, if you look at the top, the average for the past 5 years, including the tax year 19, is about a 5.5% increase. You made a decision, and we reviewed this in December, and we decided at this point to use a 3% growth, because we know that there is going to be an impact, when we're going to see it, or we know it's coming. We just don't know when exactly it's coming. And I've talked to other CFOs at other counties, and they're kind of now thinking it's going to be more in 2023. But we are starting to see, as far as income taxes and maybe assessments, we are going to see the changes that I'm seeing now that I'm collecting on the other taxes and other fees and other charges. Those we are going to see. But of course, our income tax and our property tax are the two big, strong items in our budget. So if you look at page 29, this is the report that we actually received from the state with our January payment. Okay? So if you go and you can see it shows tax year 2019, and if you go down to St. Mary's County, you can see the 99.5. That is the number that I've got on page 18. Okay? And compared to tax year 2018, that's a 7% increase. Okay? But then if you look at the bottom, the average for the state is 4%. So primarily, the difference between the 7 and the 4 could be realistically, but this doesn't even include your tax rate increase.
That's where the trick is.
That's where
what
the
number
trick is. And that's where the trick is, because the tax rate increased on January 1, 2020. So that's going to be in your tax year 2020 numbers.
From the state, too.
Right.
But tell me, explain the trick to me that you just talked about.
We're getting the information for tax year 2019.
And
then
that
we-
didn't have 317, it was 3.
No, it was still at 3%.
Correct.
So I have to, on page 18, kind of take, okay, I have to make 2019, and then I have to come back to 2020 and
Okay, I
grow
got you.
that and kind of say, okay, I take the 2019.
That takes you up
and-
to your 108.
Right, and then I divide it by 3% times 3.17 to kind of get my 2020 numbers to kind of back into it, what it would be at the higher rate.
Okay, then if I,
So then if you look at, so 2019, you can look at page 2019, on page 29, sorry, you can see that the state grew by 4%. Then the same number is there if you go across for 2018. There's my 93,051. That's on page 18 for tax year 18. We grew by 10.3%. Remember, that was last year, and we just knew that that was unsustainable, and we kind of cut that in half. But the state grew at 9%. So we're not too far from where the rest of the state is. And then our number for tax year 17 was the 84. And this is what makes it difficult. Yes, our tax year information and our growth from the state and the number of returns is strong. And it's very hard to, so that is really the information that we're using. What we did now, and what you made a decision on back in December, is because we knew that of COVID-19, we had for fiscal year 2021, we used a 3.5% growth. Well, we know now that, so we're still thinking that, yes, our growth, we don't want to keep our growth. We don't believe our growth is going to continue to be 5.5. So we used the 3% growth to try to bring it down as far as trying to be conservative still. But
that
we still
got
need to
you
use their numbers.
119 and 119,278?
Yes. And that's using the 3% growth.
So you recognize the 3% growth to start with. And then you recognize the fact that on the tax year, because we increased the tax rate by 17 basis points to get to 3.17, the major effect on that was, to the high income earners base, for lack of a better word, the two-income families
Right.
work on the base, the contractors, et cetera. So you have a 17 basis point increase at that point in time, which causes this number to go up. Probably not, it's not linear.
I would say maybe a couple million, it can't be that much.
Yeah, but then again, when you also have in here is that you're going to have the states, everyone's getting their unemployment. So unemployment is calculated here to a bit. But what everybody seems to forget is that when you have the unemployment, it's nice getting unemployment, but there's federal taxes tied to that.
That's right.
So you have an artificial number in here. We had all the people who didn't want to work because you're going to get $600 more a week. Right. So they got the $600 more a week on top of everything else they were getting, and that number's programmed in here too, which is a bogey because you're wondering where that number's going to come from. You got a rough number, and then the beauty is they have the CARES Act 1. You have the state $1.5 billion Relief Act 2, and you've got this $1.9 trillion bogey sitting out there that's going to get poured in here. So it makes it extremely difficult on Ms. Cudmore and staff to come up with something. So I believe, my words, I believe they're doing the best they can considering the circumstances, which are sort of nebulous right now, as all this stuff keeps rolling around. Is that reasonable?
That's exactly.
And I agree. I think you're doing a great job. Here, I'm not trying to complain. I'm just trying to talk about.
It's difficult, and I'm not the only person in the state of Maryland. We're all having a rough time calculating it.
But these taxes that we typically go year to year, we don't, okay, if we collected this much in taxes
Right.
last year, we don't typically think we're going to collect less.
Right.
And I guess my point is, this federal and state stimulus money is going to dry up. And
that's
then-
all going to be non-recurring. The only monies that are recurring are your property tax, your income tax. At what level? We have to kind of look at that on a year-to-year basis. And, if it's higher than what we think it's going to be, then that's where we apply the 3% growth, thinking that to be more
I just
conservative.
worry that we get too rosy of an outlook. The reality is less than what we expect.
Right.
And what do we do? And then what do we do then?
When the revenues don't come in.
Yeah.
Right.
Or on like the reoccurring revenues that don't come in.
Right. And that's where you need to be careful because maybe we don't use all of this for recurring expenses.
Well, I think you're where I'm at right now, which is you're not going to see 20's numbers till 22, essentially.
Right, I'm not going to get,
So
right.
to me, this 264 is a blip. And the reason I do that is just based on the previous conversation that we've had. Now, the St. Mary's County housing market is amazing right now. The
Right.
average is 20 days on the market. The home values are up significantly.
That's reflected in the property tax number.
Right, and we're going to see that, and we're going to see the income tax from the people that are working remotely, that are living in the county, that are, coming here. So
Right.
we're going to see some of that. It may balance itself out, but these revenues, I definitely,
high.
They're high, and I would say accurately high, but they, at the same time, a blip to me, that next year, this is going to balance itself out, and it may balance itself out in a very bad way if we're not careful.
And that's why I'm thinking maybe it's a combination. Maybe we don't use all of the money for
Right.
recurring because maybe we have that gut feeling that it's not going to be recurring. And maybe we don't have, maybe some of it goes towards non-recurring.
No, that's when I look at the other budget requests that are coming in,
Right.
as if there is no, like COVID never happened, or there is no bottom line.
We have to be sensitive to that. This may not be, it's still feeling that it's not going to be sustainable.
Well, I think what we need data. We need to see this drawdown, and we haven't seen it, and we may not see it with another, stimulus of what,
Right.
we're talking about.
But any grant money, any further stimulus, just like the 9.9 that we received this past June that we spent this year, that's all non-recurring. It's not a recurring revenue. And if we receive any more revenue from the state or the feds, it's going to be non-recurring, and the expenses are going to be tied to it that are also used for non-recurring. So it's not going to be built into our recurring revenue at all.
I'd say my opinion is if we're looking at any of this funding to build out a budget, that we're very, very careful
Yes.
in how it's used.
Yes.
Because I normally don't agree with Commissioner Morgan on the bottom falling out on things, but this one, I'm definitely on the same page with him on this one.
Thanks.
I am.
But I got it right.
I am right there.
Of course, when everybody at the federal and the state level, they're spending money, guess what's going to happen? Somehow, some way, someone's going to have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's.
And that's where your mandates could be coming down. That's where our cuts also could be coming down. One that is currently in Annapolis is the SDAT. They've got the SDAT, the local office. Here, we're paying 50% of the local. They're still trying to get it passed for 90%.
Yes.
Which could double our expense, which could add another $400,000 expense if that comes through.
Again, what I'm worried about is the $11 million in tax revenue that we're anticipating and actually getting it.
Right.
Now, 400,000 is a big number. Don't get me wrong. But 11 million is
It's a lot. It's a big number.
That number worries me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if we allocate it
Right.
and then we don't get it,
That's why I'm saying maybe we use it for some non-recurring items so that we don't count on it for the future.
the other part gets to be is if people are collecting $600 extra from the federal government, and they're going to be collecting, I guess, $300 or whatever from the one that they did right after the election, the presidential
Right.
election, and now they're getting another one with can they afford to pay the taxes on it when all comes due? Because they're struggling anyway.
Right.
And then when you find out you got $6,000 or however many thousands of dollars in money that didn't have any taxes taken out.
Right.
It wasn't earned income. It was just, grant income that you're required to pay your 18% or whatever your market rate is.
Right. Now, and I know with the property tax, and Commissioner Hewitt, you said this earlier, how many years have I sat up here and say property taxes are flat? And again, they're flat, and they're flat. And we knew that our properties I think we're finally seeing our property taxes grow to where we thought they should have been over the years.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to change. I
Right.
really don't. If you look at the DMV and the sprawl that is currently going on in the construction, you have inside the Beltway that pushed to outside the Beltway to Charles County, now Charles County to St. Mary's County, and that's evident in our housing market, the amount of new developments that are going up, 20 days on the market, the rates, even with the mortgage rates looking at it, I mean, it is really, truly a seller's market right now.
Right.
So I don't see that changing.
Yeah, and on page 31, this is my constant yield, my Valentine's Day gift. You can see February 14th every year. I don't get roses, I get the constant yield letter. So,
Page we on now?
page 31. You can see that our constant yield tax rate is .8290. So what that means is when the
Let me catch up
assessments...
with you. Hold on, I was on I got my pages.
Page 31.
31. I know, I'm back and forth on
Ah,
pages.
here we are, okay. Go ahead.
In calculating the property taxes, we wait for the constant yield tax rate, okay? So when assessments go up, the constant yield tax rate goes down, because that is keeping and maintaining your property revenue the same. So that means when our assessments just went up.
Yeah.
So if you continue, and then page 32 shows what our ad would look like, and it would need to be in the paper in April 16th. And then if you look at page 33, this is the map, and you can see Group 3, Area 3 is the one that we just had assessed, and that is your Lexington Park
That
area.
area 2 is what was following me up, because that goes down into St. George's Island. I thought that was it.
Right, so we just got an update for Area 3, okay? Then if you look at, these are some really great charts that I got from Mike Deegan over at the local office, and these are on the state website. So if you look at page 34, you can see that the residential for St. Mary's went up 7.2%, and the commercial went up 15.7%. With the combined, residential and commercial combined, 9.4% for St. Mary's County, where the state was 8.1% for Group 3.
You just need a motion to approve this and advertise?
Well,
I think it's now, right?
yeah, I don't really, I mean, you can if you want, but I mean, we don't really need to approve the rate right now. We can wait, as long as we approve it or give me some
Well, it
direction.
Decisions needed approved.
I know, but I mean, it's just,
But
if
this
you
wasn't
want
one of
to.
them.
Yep, so it's number 5 on
It's
decisions.
number 5, if you
Number
would
5.
like to make that
Oh, okay.
decision.
I thought we were
The
back
commissioners
at
are
number
ready
3.
to approve the current property tax rate. You can give us direction on that.
Right.
If not, we do have some additional
We-
time,
we
as
do.
Jeanette indicated.
I make a motion to approve the current property tax rate of .8478 as presented and authorize staff to advertise as not required.
Second.
So we're not going to consider anything on constant yield?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay,
So they need to take a vote, Jeanette.
Right,
You have a
thank you.
Okay,
motion.
we have a motion, first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Ayes have it, 1 no.
Okay, let's get back to
page
wherever
30,
we
yeah,
were.
but page 36, I was going to go through some
Well, I
forms,
mean,
and
we
I
were on
appreciate
page
the vote. Thank
17
you.
and-
Yeah, so if you look at 35, that,
Well, let me put my stuff back together. So we're done with 19, 20, all this.
we're still going through all these
We
pages.
don't need all
So
that?
I'm just kind of going through, where looking at page 36, where you can see the different groups each year.
36, page
Yep, look at 36, and this is the change in groups by year.
Get there, Jeanette, I'm sorry.
Okay,
36.
page
I've got
36.
stuff all over the place.
I know, I'm shuffling papers too.
Page 36.
36.
Well, but you're leading the pack, and I'm trying to follow you. All right, whatever, I'll put this one later.
I love it.
No, you're up to page
You're awesome.
36 now?
Yeah, look at 36.
Page 36.
All right, go ahead.
All right, you see 36 and you see St. Mary's County. You can see, starting in 2008, that's where it was Group 2. And you can see each county, and you can see where so Group 3, you can see the state, the last column on your right, 8.1%. The last time we had Group 3, it was, if you go back in 2018, it was a 2.2% increase. And then 1.5% increase in 2015. So, and then you can see the years before that where we took the nosedive, and then we're slowly coming back out. So it looks like we're finally coming out. And then I like page 38.
Gee, I was just getting used to 36.
Okay.
So that shows the trending that we're talking about, where we have the 2010, 11.
Right.
12, yeah, okay, got it.
So that's where we were. And we were, that's why we were also flat for a number of years too, because we were coming out of where it dropped in 2011. So it took us a while to get to where we are.
Okay, this is-
But we are in line right now, on page 38. You see that graph? That's kind of a neat,
flat.
yeah. Okay? All right. So that is primarily, that's the end of, and we can continue on,
Good news is it's flat to the positive, so that's good.
right, but we're growing like with the rest of the state. So we're at 8.1, the whole state grew by the 9%. I mean, the whole state grew 8.1, and we were 9.4.
So while we're still talking about property tax, I'm sure you would eventually get to it, but I am looking at page 20 and 22 for our disabled veterans.
Yes.
Let her get to that.
Yeah,
Is that-
I'm getting there.
That's,
You're getting there?
I'm getting there.
You getting there? All right.
I plan on going through this entire package. Okay, so that's property taxes. So that's kind of where we are. But then income taxes, like I said, you get the information, and we got the info in January, which is giving us our tax year 2019. Yes, I am expecting a payment this week, and it's all going to be tax year 2020. So I'm like on pins and needles waiting on that to see where we are. Okay? So that information in the report, like I said, information from January is on page 29. And then you can see the number of returns on page 30. So you can see our returns actually increased too on page 30. Our returns for 2019 increased 2.1%. So that's, interesting, and you can see the state average in returns, 1.2. So are all the people that lived in the bigger counties moving to the suburbs?
So we're getting more
Yes,
people working.
they are.
Right. So that's kind of an indication and could also be a reason for our strong income tax growth in tax year 19.
Strong.
So there's many variables that add to this. Okay?
Of course, there may be some other variables, too, that we need to be aware of when the present administration changes
Right.
deductions for income tax that was put in place by our last president. When that change comes, it's going to be a big difference.
Right.
I think it'll be a big difference. Our income tax, income from is going to, that tax base is going to go down.
Right.
If that's the change they're looking at.
And that's why we
Remember,
were.
they have a limitation on how much you can deduct, property tax and
The salt tax.
property,
Right, the salt.
yeah, all that stuff. So if they change all that, that's going to be, and
And that was part of the 17, 18, 19 stuff, too,
Exactly.
where people moved money from one year to the next, and we had some of those
I think it could be a
changes.
change that we need to sort of pay attention to.
Right.
It's
And
getting a
so,
lot of pressure from people like New York and New Jersey to change that structure back.
right.
If that happens,
Well, the offsets could be capital gains. And
capital gains, same way. Yeah.
you can't
It's hard to guess some of
can't
this
even
stuff,
guess
but
close. And then look at Annapolis, like we're going through the BRFA right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many hidden taxes in that BRFA, it's pathetic.
yeah, so we better be rather
So our
conservative.
growth is showing that we're higher. We're at, the last 5 years is at 5.5%. We're using a 3% growth,
I agree with you.
just to be on the conservative, just
I
to
agree with
know
My
that,
only concern is if we go too conservative with it.
Right.
Because then we're collecting more money than we need to collect for our
Yeah.
budget, and that's not fair to our taxpayers.
right.
Now, are we considering any of this portion on the taxes that are going to come down from the new tax that was passed by Annapolis on like Netflix and Amazon, and
No,
so you're not looking at any of that? Okay.
no.
Actually, I don't think that makes it to the county. I think that'll stay at the
Is that going to
state.
go straight?
I think that's going to stay.
They're not even going to give us a portion?
Why would they? They're-
Probably not.
Yeah.
Virginia's getting all that.
Yeah.
They are.
That'll be in court some.
So
Yeah,
page,
that is.
So page 19 is the assessable base, back to 19,
Back to where we were.
back to where we were.
There we go, there we go.
Okay, so again, I'm not going to go back to the past pages, but I use and update the last column on your right. That's where I updated the info from the constant yield tax letter, okay? So the real property comes from the constant yield tax letter, and the personal, public utilities, and the corporate come from the update that was in the state's website in November. And then again, we'll get another update at the end of March. And then that'll be what we use for our property tax revenue, okay? So our constant yield, our real property, our rate right now, the .8478, which you just approved, is 0.0188 higher than the constant yield, almost 2 cents, okay? All right, now we're going to turn onto this beautiful page. It's all full of colors on page 20. And it's, I know, I was reading it upstairs, and I'm thinking, my goodness, hopefully we can read it downstairs. It's a lot of small print, a lot of good information, but everything in the green are our current property tax credits that we have. So we have our 6510, which is above, that's the one that was approved back in 2018, and it's for those that are 65 years old and has lived in the same dwelling for 40 years, and also for those that have been in the armed services, okay? So we're continuing the estimate of $75,000 for that property tax credit, based on what we've actually received so far in FY 2021 and FY 2020, okay? We'll go down to the senior tax credit cap. We're keeping that estimate also at $600,000. That we can see so far in '21, we've received $485,000, or there's been $485,000 worth of credits that have been applied to individuals' property taxes. And the actual for FY 2020 was $526,000. So people are using the credits. That's a good
Now,
thing.
these credits here for the elderly?
Yes, the senior
Seniors,
tax. Mhm.
they can only pick one of those.
Right. And
They
what
can't get all three of them.
What the treasurer does, she looks at all the credits that are available, and she assesses each individual's situation
And finds them the best one.
and finds them the best credit, the one that'll give them the most bang for their money, right?
I understand.
So her office does a lot of work in trying to figure out, I mean, they look at almost every senior citizen, every one that can actually apply, and really determines, which one is good, best for the citizen. Then we have the matching tax credit, and that is the $950, and then we actually receive reimbursement from the state on this credit. So whatever credit we get, there's a matching credit for that one, okay? Then at the bottom, and the bottom green is what we show for the constant yield and the homeowner's tax credit, okay? So this is where you can see that, again, you can see the assessment went from $49 million, and what we had on the constant yield tax letter, the abatement for the assessments is about 60.8. So like I said earlier, as your assessments increase, your constant yield rate goes down, okay? So now we're in the middle of the page. We're at, and there's a letter that kind of goes with this from legal. And so we have actually, if you look at page 21, you can see that there's actually, number one is talking about where we have Article 7-208 is an existing tax credit, but it's actually on the assessments that's applied at the state level prior to us receiving our assessments. So it's already been taken care of at the state level. So that's already been reduced from our assessments, okay? But it's available for veterans. Then we have number two, which is the current one where we could have done 20% credit, and this is for we call this the 6510. This is where you already have one, but what happened is there's actually enabling legislation to extend the eligibility list for those that can actually receive this. And by extending the eligibility list, you can look and see on the pink section, based on the information that we've received from the Veterans Affairs and also from the information that we have, if we adopt the existing and the extension of the 6510, it would be an additional credit available of $272,100 is the estimate. And so you can see on page 21 at the bottom, it says, eligibility, military personnel under 65, with service-connected disability, who are active, retired, or honorably discharged members of one uniform, 2 military reserves or National Guard. So they're expanding who can actually apply for this credit. And surviving spouses of active duty military personnel, and then a surviving spouse who is at least 65. So with the expansion, will be more people that will be able to apply for the credit.
And that's coming from the state?
Yes. Yes.
All we have to do is adopt it, right?
And if you adopt it, then we would need to, it's a reduction to property tax, because it would be a credit, which is reducing the estimate. And again, remember when we adopted the 6510, I think I had put originally an estimate in there of what, $200,000, and based on who applied, we've now reduced it. So this is probably, the 272, again, is probably on the high side, because it really depends on who, we have the numbers that we get from Veterans Affairs on who lives in St. Mary's County, and Neil from Legal, he's wonderful, and he kind of gathered all this information and got information from the treasurer also, depending, based on the numbers that we're getting. I mean, that's all we can use. We have the numbers, and then we can kind of look at it, what's our average property tax bill, and we kind of, calculate all those, and that's kind of how we came up with an estimated credit of $272,100.
Wow.
So that's if you expand the current credit.
I think it's a good idea to expand it. I mean, the eligibility to our veterans and their spouses is important, the things that they go through, supporting them through their time and the illnesses that come with it. I mean,
right. And then there's another credit. If you look at page 22, and that 22 is the additional amount for number 3, and that's kind of like in the color purple. Okay, and you'll see there's a fiscal impact. It's Article 9-265. Okay, and it's got 2 sections of this. That's why there's 2 numbers. Okay, so the $419,089 is reference to the disabled veterans with a federal adjusted gross income of less than $100,000, and they could probably receive a 25% credit on real property tax if they have a service-connected disability rating of 50 to 74%, or 50% credit on the county's real property tax if they have a disability in the rating of 75 to 99%. And if you adopt that credit, or do this, it would be a reduction of $419,000.
Got that many disabled here, huh?
Well, yeah, apparently there's a good number of them.
well, I mean,
And then the other part of that is for adding a surviving spouse a credit on the county's real property tax. And then that would be an additional credit of $1,091,000. So the 2 of those in the purple is really the $1.5 million if you were to adopt that credit. And then the one for extending the current credit that we have is the 272.
Are these tied into any kind of income level?
it says federally adjusted gross income of less than 100,000.
Yeah, that's the one on the 9.9-265. That one has the income of $100,000.
Commissioners, just a note that the treasurer, on page 22, there is a notation that the treasurer does expect an additional workload with the tax credit for 265,
Right.
that she'd need an additional person to manage those tax credits.
It's a lot of work that her office puts in, reviewing each and every individual that comes in and reviews these tax credits to make sure that the individual receives the right tax credit or the one that provides the most maximum benefit. So that's why she's thinking that she would probably need an additional individual. So the direction we're looking for, and if, you can
So
give it.
now, they can only apply for one of these credits, right?
Right,
It's not, they can't give all 3 of them here.
right. The one that gives the individual the most credit, the highest credit on their property tax bill. And that's the practice that she follows.
So at the current rate, we've given the veterans 2 options, 1 and 2 right now. And how much is the fiscal note on that so far?
So that, on page 20 is the best place, I think, to
Right.
see the
Trying to figure it out. So
snapshot.
Yeah, on page 20, on the peach, if
So that'd
we,
be- Right now, there's a $272,000 fiscal note for either 1 or 2.
right,
But if we go to 3, we would have an increase of $1.5 million.
right.
Or is it 1.5 million, or is it?
Well, it can be broken down in 2 pieces. There's 2 pieces that you can do.
Could be 1.5.
Right, depending on whether you do the disabled less than 100, then if you add their surviving spouse a credit, then that increases it up to $1,091,000.
Well, I think it's this, it also lets us define what a surviving spouse is. So
Right.
it could be a surviving spouse, basically at the time that you have to be married, the veteran has to be alive at the time that you submit the tax credit, which significantly reduces that, because if you just do surviving spouse of a veteran, then that opens up
Right.
a larger window.
And that's where you can identify your definitions.
Yeah,
And we would have to do an ordinance,
which
you
that
know,
would
in public
reduce
hearing.
the money,
Right.
if you did it that way, significantly, because now it's not just surviving spouses.
So these estimates that are on page 20, the 272, the 419, and the 1,091, I believe that those are probably on the high side.
And so Commissioners, as Ms. Cudmore alluded to on page 22, if you'd like to move forward, these are a new ordinance, so you'd have to have a public hearing and those kinds of things before they be adopted. So there's two pieces today. One, of course, is financial in terms of factoring in which ones you'd like to have, and then we would begin the process, if you'd like to, through your normal ordinance
It's a
process.
decision that needs to be made today.
It would be nice, but you don't have to. I mean, we would take this to our public hearing in April, so it would be before the recommended budget is adopted.
Okay.
On the 31st. But it would be nice to maybe get it for, maybe, I think the 16th is probably the best, so that we can incorporate it into our balancing.
I'd like to think about this a little.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do too, and I'd like to hear from Kelly, I shouldn't call her Kelly, the treasurer Kelly.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And I'd like to see what an ordinance looks like, so if there is a draft one, I'd like to see what that looks like.
We haven't drafted one yet because of the decision of the commissioners.
Okay.
If you'd like us to draft one.
Or an example, since Anne Arundel's the only other county that's enacted this, if we could
Okay.
see what that looks like.
Correct. So we can look at Anne Arundel, we can get with the treasurer and legal, and come up with an ordinance with the definitions on how we would apply it.
And if staff doesn't mind reaching out to the Southern Maryland Association of Realtors and see how this tax credit would impact home sales based on the mortgages when they're looking at it. Because if it's under $100,000, that puts a lot of veterans into a bracket, basically, that a mortgage payment's going to be significantly lower based on the property tax credit. So I'd like to see how this spurs home ownership.
Okay, well, I think first we need to almost probably get the ordinance written up with all the definitions so that we have something to send to the realtors, but we will definitely make sure they're aware of it and get their feedback.
Thank you.
So we can probably bring that back,
And you said the goal was probably the 16th?
the 16th,
Okay, so that
so we
would be
can
our
get a
goal.
decision on that, so we can.
If there's any way to find
If you decide
out.
to go forward with
You're
this.
estimating that this applies to 888 veterans? Is that what you're?
Yes,
Approximately?
yeah.
I'd like to know what these 888 veterans are doing once they get here to the county. What kind of job do they have?
Wait a minute, Mako-
What kind of home do they own?
Right.
Now, I will say this, I argued Mako all the time. I'm always for these bills. I'm usually the single person.
That is very true. You are the Lone Ranger.
I'm the Lone Ranger. Even those other veterans sitting there, they will say no to any kind of tax incentive for veterans. My argument is, I say, look, these people come to our county, they get a good job, some of them a six-digit income. They may have a $400,000 or $500,000, $600,000 home paying taxes. Those are our two primary incomes. This is a draw to me to bring people here and keep them here. Just like retirement income. It's just another thing for military retirement income. These people retire. You say, okay, we're going to let your $30,000, $40,000 a year income be partially exempt from taxes. And they get a six-digit income job, and they have big homes they buy. That's our primary income.
Right.
So, I mean, these things, we need to look at them very closely. I know we have three of them here now, but they can only select one of these three, right?
Right, that is the practice.
Whatever fits their particular.
Whatever provides the most credit for them.
And understanding their taxable income comes into play and everything else. So we need to be very conscious about what we're telling people here and let them know that these people are not just coming here and drawing tax-free money. They're also making income and paying taxes.
Right.
And they're paying income tax.
That was
They're
my
paying
point about the
property tax.
home ownership
Sure.
and several other things. And the one other piece of clarity I would like here is this 75% to 99%, okay? So one would believe that if you're 100% non-permanent, this would be applicable to you. So I want to make sure that if you're 100% non-permanent, then it's applicable because.
You already have that. That's already been done, right?
Well,
100%.
no, 100% non-permanent, there is nothing for you, period.
Oh, non-permanent.
Right.
Okay.
But if you're permanent, it has to be permanent in total, you apply for number one. So this doesn't say 100%, so are they saying that you're only eligible if you're between 75 and 99%?
That's the way it's written, but we can
That's the way
get
it's
some
written
further
right here.
Yeah,
clarification.
which is kind of messed up for the veterans that are 100% non-total and permanent, because you have an 8-year window before you actually become permanent as defined by the Department of Veterans Affairs. So you have to
Right.
have that disability for that extended amount of time before you're permanent. So are they left in
What
limbo?
happens to that 1%?
Right. Or do they qualify because 99% is a part of getting to 100%?
Sure. I don't know why they picked 99, why they just didn't put
geez, oh, geez.
100%.
This is why lawyers make all that money.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Hey,
Right. So we'll try to,
Impact any of the veterans and?
No, it doesn't impact me at all. None of this does.
yeah.
Not me, anyway.
No, this won't impact me.
Question, on the relative to income, federally adjusted gross income, what happens on married filing as a couple?
What's that? No,
It says adjusted federal gross income less than $100,000. So if you're a couple, how do they treat that? Or is it just, or you file separately?
Yeah, I guess you'd have to file separately. That's get an accountant for that one.
Above that, you don't get it.
If you
Yeah.
file jointly and you're above that income level, you don't get anything.
That's not what it says.
That's what
Right.
it seemed like would be.
Huh?
That's not what it says.
That's not what it says?
Fred, it doesn't say anything about
But with
married.
federal- So your question, then you have surviving spouse, are they filing jointly or are they filing separately? That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have a two-person working family.
Right.
I guess surviving spouse, wouldn't that be a widow or a widower?
Yeah.
To me, surviving spouse is someone, yeah, the veteran's
The
dead.
other one's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
But there's no, in
Sound a little
the
complicated.
configuration here, there's no age.
Well, we were at 8 pages long in
Well-
this memo. We got it down 8 to 2 pages, so there might be some other stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see the full readout for this, but also I'm glad there's no age on this, because if you're 26 and you're getting out of the military and you want to buy a home and your job is paying you $56,000 a year or $42,000 a year, this with the VA home mortgage program and this, it makes home ownership that much more of a reality for our younger veterans getting out.
Right, which is a
And
good thing.
They are,
Absolutely.
because some of them are doing 2, 3, 4 years. They're doing tours over in Iraq, Afghanistan. They're coming back, and they're getting into the field like Commissioner President said. They might be getting a job on base, or just getting into a public safety field. They're doing a lot of different things.
Right.
And this, I just look at it as a step for new home ownership. Either way.
Well, we can bring back some more information. We can talk to the treasurer. We can,
Yeah, I'd like to get the
look at and maybe start developing, what an ordinance would look like
Yeah.
in the process, in the application, because we would have to develop an application. This is really the first step, just to get your approval to start moving towards this direction.
Yeah.
Let's move
And-
forward. So we need to wait on approving this tax credit.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
More
But
information.
you're wanting more information.
Okay, so that can
And you
be,
would stretch it out to when?
I would, if I can get info to take to the public hearing by March 16th, I think that would be great. Because then that, if you decide to go forward with
So
this.
2 weeks from now.
Then I would have to develop and adjust the property taxes and whatnot for whatever credit you decide to do or
Okay.
not
so
do.
we'll move this out until 2 weeks from now.
Yes,
Okay.
that would be
3:15.
great.
Is that okay, everybody?
Yeah,
Yes.
March 16th would be good.
So
and that
item
would give
3,
us time
item
to
3, we're moving
calculate.
out 2 weeks to more information.
Yep.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, what page are you on now?
Okay, we're getting close to being almost done. Aren't you excited?
No, that's not important, but
All right, look at page
Track my
23.
pages, yeah.
23, I know.
That's all right.
23, I don't know if Catherine's here or not.
In the door.
She just walked in the door. You're just in time.
Come on up.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, welcome.
You may recall that in December, we presented the Care First Premium Rebate, and during that conversation, we discussed retiree health benefits, and the commissioners asked for me to come back with some examples of retiree health benefits specifically for elected officials. So if you look at the summary in the memo, that describes what our current policies are. So active employees, 85% of the health premium is subsidized. Grant and revenue employees hired after January 31st, 2005 are not eligible for retiree health. They're required to pay 100% of their retiree health. And then retiree health insurance vesting is displayed on the chart.
What's the crux of this?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What's the crux of this? What's the change?
So that's on 24.
Yep,
Yeah,
so-
I'm trying to,
Yep. So on the next page is a chart that describes the vesting schedule for Calvert and Charles. And then on the row below, Maryland state employees, and then the two different types of elected officials in the state of Maryland.
But what's the fiscal note? Am I looking at it and not seeing it? Is there a fiscal note as to what this,
There is
Change.
not. Right.
so we don't know what it'll cost to change it?
We were just looking at the difference. Some municipalities and some organizations have different vesting schedules for elected officials. And it looks like it's primarily driven by term limits. And we wanted to present what those schedules are.
so what was the conversation I had with you?
But
Was
it looks like our counties are in line with the tri-county areas, roughly.
So interestingly, though, Calvert and Charles, their elected officials do not have term limits.
That's the difference.
Oh.
Yeah,
So their vesting schedule is the same for all employees, including elected officials, just like it currently is in St. Mary's. But again, they don't have term limits.
So elected official could do 25 years, would be like the sheriff, treasurer.
Correct. Correct.
all right, so what was I can't remember the percentage breakdown. What was it? I said, was it 15% after into the third term?
What I'm thinking aloud is we would look at ourselves as being per se legislators because that's our function. The
state legislators only pay 40%.
state legislatures pay, if you look at that category, 4 terms, 16 years, they pay 20, and then it goes down differently. My idea is that we are term limited in St. Mary's. So basically, we would be the equivalent of a 4-term state legislator because of the term limitations. So the idea would be that if you can make it through 3 terms, you get the 20, you get an 80-20 split.
I thought we said 80-15 on 3 terms.
Or
80, it was, if you make it on
or you could be
2.
like, you could be the equivalent of a county, 85-15.
85-15 is what it was.
You can go
I
that
think-
way. And then at 2 terms, you go back and look at a prorated basis, such as the Maryland legislature. Prorated basis says they're based upon, 2 terms get you something,
That's
which would be the
25.
equivalent of 75-25, something like that.
Yeah, wasn't
Isn't it
it,
like
was it
now how much it's
75-25 that I said in our conversation?
I think so.
It was 75-25 on 2 terms, and then 3 terms, it was 85-15.
I think so.
I think
what you
that's, yeah,
proposed.
yeah, I think that was, yeah.
That's in here?
No, that was a
We had
conversation that
discussion
Commissioner
about
O'Connor.
3 months ago here.
Yeah, it was 3 months ago we had the conversation at the dais, but then, speaking with Commissioner Morgan, we came back and forth on a few different things looking at it, but I just asked to see.
But right now, a Maryland state elected official,
Yeah,
2 terms, 8 years, is 75-25.
right. Yep,
Right now, for us, is nothing, 100%.
correct. Yeah, it's 100%. So that's what I guess the feeling behind it is looking at bringing us more in line with the state on the medical benefits. Because one, you don't touch retirement being separate from it. I'm never going to see, not anytime soon, you'll probably be able to draw on yours
No, I don't
immediately.
know. I don't know.
Because you have to be 65 or,
But I don't get any retirement from the state.
Well, you will. You
8
get a
years.
state retirement.
At 8 years, do I get retirement at 8 years?
10 years.
10 years. So if
10 years.
if you won another term.
I'd run another term, but
You'd
right
get
now,
that.
I'm limited on that.
Yeah.
If after this term, I'm done at 8 years, I get no retirement. I get the money that the state has now will come back to me.
Correct.
And I can put it in my VOIA account, for example.
Right.
Correct.
Without paying any taxes.
Correct.
Right.
Or go to Vegas.
But I have no other, not that I need, not that I need any medical myself, but I would have no medical. If I didn't have it, I'd lose my medical.
I think the bigger picture here is it's not just about us. I think if you're looking at the county and the dynamic, generally speaking,
Yes.
the Compensation Review Commission did one thing to attract more people to run for
Yes,
office.
yes.
And I think that this overall, when you're looking at it for somebody that is, I would say more so, and pardon me here, but myself and Commissioner Colvin's age bracket, let's put it that way, and you're using that money in the medical benefits, it's an important factor when you're looking at how many times you're going to run, or if you're going to run, or if you're going to stay in the
If
commitment.
you're going to run it all, yeah, it is. It really is, yeah.
Because when you advertise what, you say 56, but I think when you obviously display something and, what the total compensatory package would be, if you put it together for somebody.
Right.
Like, this is what you actually, what it means if you run for office and you're dedicated and you make it and you run again and the people decide to actually keep you. So,
That's part of the total package, like you said.
correct. So.
I still don't get it, though. So what happens is right now, if you serve 2 terms, there's no help with health insurance.
If you
right?
wanted to stay on,
If
you have
you
to pay
do under 10
100%.
years, there's no
Even after 10.
from the county.
No.
Correct. There's no subsidy.
And what you're,
subsidy.
okay, and what you're talking about doing is if someone has 2 terms, they would get some kind of a credit.
Yes, that's one of the, that's what Maryland does.
That's what Maryland does to our state legislators, senators. Their people are all paid after 8 years. They have a 75-25 split.
Delegates have a 40%. It's 60/40. Do you see that middle
60/40,
chart?
state 60,
And the delegates
employee
40.
40.
Mhm. And then state elected officials, it's the 75-25.
Who is state elected officials?
Yeah, who are they?
That would be the Attorney General.
Yeah, Attorney General, Governor.
Yeah,
Fritz's office?
No, and the governor's not included in here.
I know, the governor is
Lieutenant
excluded.
Governor.
The lieutenant governor and
Maryland
all
state
those.
elected,
Right.
so you're talking Frost and that bunch up
Yes,
there.
Right.
Yep, yep.
And we haven't figured out what this would cost us if we went with one scenario or another?
So we did speak to Bolton, and it would change our OPEB liability, but not by much, because there's not a
Get them
large...
Friday, right?
Yes,
Yes,
yep, and because there's not a large number of people.
right. So it would have a small impact.
Right, it would have a small impact to the liability.
It would just be adding additional employees that could be part of the retiree plan. That's all.
Correct, yep.
So what I'm just thinking aloud is we look at elected officials in the county. That would not just include commissioners, it would include the treasurer, the judges of the orphans court.
Probably talking BOE people?
They're not in they're not in the medical plan. I would like to include RC&D.
How about Metropolitan Commission, or the Planning Commission?
That's not an elected
They
official.
don't get benefits.
No.
RC&D's not elected.
Those are appointed.
No.
Well, I'm going to bring it up. So I'm saying anyone who is an elected official that currently has participation in the retirement program or in the benefits program would be considered in the plan. And using the example here that 3 terms was 15 years, that would be an 85-15 split.
But
If you
3
had-
terms for us is only 12 years, so you just equating our
Well,
12.
I'm doing the fact that you're limited here because of term limits. The term limits is what messes things up. So I'm trying to find a fair way of term limits because you can't do anything more after term limits are through.
Well, do you want to include RC&D anyway, even though it's
I'm going to
not
get to
elected?
that.
Okay.
So I'm saying here that after 3 terms, you would have an 85-15 split. After 2 terms, you have a 75-25 split. The same thing would then occur in the cases of elected officials. If they stayed 12 years, they would be at 85-15. If they had stayed for 8 years, they'd be at 75-25. And the anomaly that I'd like to throw in there is that RC&D, which is a combined state-county function, has no benefits at the end when they retire. And that was
How come state doesn't take care of their employees?
well, I have no idea, but that was the letter we received
Yeah, it is.
earlier this week, asking that we would take into, well, if we're going to do this, take into consideration our C&D director, and then just lump it into one big package.
I mean, would that fall under other state employees, treasurer, or health department, or?
Well, no.
It'd be elected officials in the county.
All right.
Regardless
Well,
of term
Go
limits?
ahead, I'm sorry.
Regardless of term limits?
Yeah.
Let me understand again. So if a commissioner serves one term, or if somebody serves one term, the split is 0 county, 100% that person.
Correct.
That person serves 2 terms, 8 years.
8 years.
It's how much county?
75, 25.
Oh, okay. And if they are successful for 3 terms, 85-15?
Correct.
And would that also apply, that ratio apply to Bruce Young?
I would propose that, only because he's the anomaly. That was the request in the letter we got.
Why would we want to do it if the state don't want to do it?
Because we're better than the state?
Because he's, I'm using Bruce as the example, it could be anybody in the future. Because
Let's just say soil
okay, it
conservation.
could be John Doe.
Yeah.
They fall into this bucket of nothing. You serve all those years, and your salary was split between the county and the state. And at the end of the day, no one's there looking out for you when you're done. So
I mean,
the
it seems
idea
like
is
you've been
that,
there 32 years. You may have known that going in and as you went along.
I just read the letter.
Well, Commissioner Morgan, I'll do this. I make a motion to change the healthcare benefits package for elected officials to include the director RC&D, all right, to 2 terms being a 75% county share, 25% elected official share, and after 3 terms, 85% county share and 15% elected official share.
And then as far as years are concerned, let's take into consideration, let's say the treasurer. The treasurer can run unlimited, as could our sheriff.
It doesn't matter. But it's finite. This is it.
That's fine for now, including the RC&D director as being a 3-term person.
Yes, that's how I laid it out. Right?
Including, what now, RCD directors.
Yep.
Okay, and we don't have a fiscal note on this?
Correct.
Is it wise to vote on something without a fiscal note?
It's minimal from what Ms. Pratson said in OPEB.
Why wouldn't we just have the RC&D director just follow the other county retirement plans?
Well, I'll accept the friendly amendment
So
if you.
they serve 15 years, the county pays 42.5%, 20 years, 63.
That's fair.
Okay. Are you going to make an amendment?
Yeah.
Okay.
That amendment.
All right. Well, I accept the amendment. Just need a second now.
Second.
Did everybody get the amendment down? And got the?
Yes, sir.
What the motion is?
The motion is to have the health care benefits package for elected officials, 2 terms, county 75-25 for elected officials, percentage split, 3 terms, 85 county, 15 elected officials, and with the friendly amendment, the RCD director would follow the St. Mary's County government plan.
That sounds,
That's fair.
And may I just add that
Conservation is the
allowing the commissioner president to sign the documents because there is a trust, there is a retirement trust.
And allowing the commissioner president to sign the related documents.
Got it.
is that acceptable? Everybody agree with that?
Retroactively affect previous elected officials that served 3 terms or more.
I think this would be
Change the
moving
past.
forward.
Hey.
Yeah.
And we don't know what this is going to cost, and we're telling people we're going to increase our benefits at the taxpayer's expense, and we don't know what it's going to cost you? Is that what we're saying here? I know what we're saying here.
Do you want an analysis first before we vote on this?
I just think, we should know what it
Hey,
is.
you got a first and a second
Things look
already.
like we're patting ourselves.
That's fair. I think we could get an analysis before we move forward with this. That makes sense.
Get all
Can we achieve an analysis, say, in the next 2 weeks or
we
next
can-
week?
And try to bring something back
I
from
can,
Bolton
yeah, I can bring something back to the next budget work session.
Okay,
next Tuesday.
so next week.
We won't need it.
Oh, I don't know if next Tuesday.
Is that agreeable to everybody, or do we want to?
Yeah, so maybe.
Well, we can
maybe
leave the
on 9th?
motion on the floor.
You got a
and then
motion and a second, Commissioner President. It seems like you'd have to deal with it.
You can leave the motion and the second on the floor pending the information for the
Right, and
next
we'll try
meeting.
to bring that back within the next 2 budget work sessions,
So,
because we're working tonight probably to get ready for the next ones.
So are you tabling the motion? Is that what you're doing?
Well, would this change everybody's mind on this?
it's not,
don't
I
know.
mean, I already know.
Okay,
it's
we're going
minimal.
to leave the motion on the floor until next week.
Well, if it's not going to change anybody's mind, you got a point, Commissioner President Guy.
I mean, it's not, I know it's minimal at best in the entire scheme of the OPEB. That's why you're adding 5 people to OPEB. I mean, if you look at this board, it's like.
Because we're not
adding 10
retroacting this to nobody. This is from now on.
Right.
This
It's
point
not, it's
forward.
not retroactive.
That's
so-
retroactive. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that.
Tell me, if these guys leave the board after a couple of, so we got to pay their health insurance for the next 30 years or 40 years, as long as they're alive?
Well, that's why we like people like me that's older. It
No,
won't
no,
last
Randy,
30 years.
Let's talk about the way it is.
But we advertise that. I'm going to use it as my campaign next time.
Yeah.
Elect me, and you have to pay all these damn benefits. I won't live that long.
You're just going to have to tell them that you.
Well, I mean, do you want to quote?
No, we've tabled it now until next week, and Catherine's going to bring back the approximate amount that this might cost the government. How's that?
I mean,
Is that good? Is that good,
I don't know.
everybody?
I think it's
good?
easier just to have the vote and get it done. I mean, is it really?
Yeah, we can wait a week. It's not going to hurt anything for us to wait a week.
Because
Let's wait 1 week. I'm ready.
all right.
How's that? Wait 1 week.
Well,
And we'll
Commissioners,
get that fiscal note on that, okay? So that's a week, okay? Well, we've done all 5 decisions here already.
Yes, we have. Yes, you have. Thank you. You have direction on all 5.
Is there anything else left
we're
here
going to
that you
wait on,
have?
yes, so you approved the impact fee, you approved the changes to the CIP.
CIP, right.
As presented, and we're going to bring back info on the Emergency Communication Center.
Right.
Property tax credit, we're going to wait a few weeks and get some more
2
information.
weeks on that, right?
Right, and try to come back with a sample ordinance.
Okay.
Retiree health insurance will
There's
come
1
back
week
with a
from now?
fiscal note next week or a
Okay.
week after, and then you approved the current property tax rate to stay at .8478.
Right.
So
Okay.
thank you very much.
Are we, do you have anything else, Mr. Cudmore?
I think we're good for the day.
Good for today?
We'll be back next Tuesday,
Right.
and we'll be going over the follow-up from today,
Okay.
and also starting and operating and the Board of Education's budget. So with that, thank you very much for a good
Any
session.
commissioners have any questions for Ms. Cudmore?
Yeah, I would just say that, Ms. Cudmore, the first point of order that'll need to be on the next budget work session is the fiscal note for Ms. Pratzen, because we're leaving with a motion on the floor. So that
That'll be the first thing.
needs to be the first point of order. That motion needs to be completed before we move forward with the rest of the meeting. So that's it.
And I think Ms. Preston get that.
We'll
right?
send something to Bolton and try to get that included in the work session next week.
There you go. Okay. How's that?
Very much.
Are we all agree with that? Okay, our session is over. Thank you very much.